Hi there, I'm Jake from Bullfrog Arts. We do the taiko drumming videos on the channel, which you may have seen, and if you haven't, I'd recommend checking them out. But today I'm here on behalf of Bullfrog to do the 3 and 5 video. Although I should point out that I've made these selections so they're not necessarily representative of everybody who works here. Okay, let's begin with the albums. First off, I've chosen the Last Waltz by the band. If you haven't come across the band, they were their heyday was kind of like late 60s, early 70s, and they were Bob Dylan's backing band for a while, but a bona fide band in their own right, releasing several albums, and just being around and in the middle of that crazy scene that sort of like spans from the 60s into the 70s. Playing with loads of different people, and the Last Waltz was their final hurrah. It was their final gig. It was recorded for posterity on video by Martin Scorsese, and that's how I first came across this album. Was many years ago. I caught the film, but the album is a 3-disc soundtrack, and it features people like Bob Dylan, Van Morrison makes an appearance, Joni Mitchell, Ringo Starr, Ronnie Wood. Loads of people turn up and play with the band for their last gig, and it's just a really jubilant atmosphere that comes across really well in the recordings. So a great one to listen to now, if only as a historical artifact and full of fantastic tunes on it. Then skipping forward, again, quite a selfish choice here, but then again, I'm the one making the decisions. So this one is Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins. And in my teenage years, I grew up sort of in the 80s and 90s, and Smashing Pumpkins were really big, and I was very deeply embedded in what was called the grunge scene. And Siamese Dream is an album that is just full of fantastic sort of American grunge rock tunes. I still listen to it today. It's still up there for me as a fantastic album, and at the moment it's a good one to listen to if you're into that kind of rock sort of sound, because it's huge, the sound is massive, and it's a great place to get lost in for a while, to take yourself out of these crazy times for a minute. Third album is an album for dancing along to, jumping around to, and generally having a good time with, and it's Down on Deptford Broadway by Skinny Lister. This is a slightly cheeky selection because several members of Skinny Lister do work with Bullfrog Arts, but they're a fantastic band, an international touring band, and if you haven't come across them yet, do check them out. Down on Deptford Broadway is a particular favourite here, and it's just sort of like punky, folky, really upbeat, and it's definitely going to cheer you up until we get out of lockdown. Okay, so moving on to the 5 recommended acts, I'm going to start with Suffjan Stevens. Suffjan is spelled S-U-F-J-A-N. You may have come across him, but if you haven't, he's worth checking out. He's got a huge back catalogue for an artist who's still fairly young, and he's done quite a range of music. Sort of started off doing very folky kind of albums. He's an American guy with a very interesting history. Check out his personal history, it's fascinating, drives a lot of his writing. But he's done lots of more sort of like almost disco-y, dancey kind of soundtracks, some very synthy stuff, some stuff that sounds like it's done in as part of a school play. He's a very creative artist, very prolific, and really a sonic adventure to enjoy. Second recommendation is Beach House. If you haven't come across Beach House, they're sort of like really lush synthy sounds and beats and lovely kind of layered vocals, really dreamy music. Great for on your release from home, on your walk or your exercise, just to have in headphones and sort of feel like you're in another world kind of thing in the empty streets. Although they're not so empty these days, but you'll get the idea. Third act is a guy called Moondog. And Moondog is not very widely known, and sadly is no longer with us. He died a few years ago. But is a very interesting artist. Again, an American artist, ended up living in Germany. And he was a fantastic musician. You couldn't describe him as classical, but he has a lot of that kind of sound to his music, some beautiful piano playing, lovely songs, lovely ideas in his songs, very sweet, and a real character. There's some photos of him stood dressed as a Viking on in New York, and he used to do that regularly, just dress as a Viking and stand on the street in New York. And he was blind, had this massive great big beard. He just stood there while people walked around him, walked past him, and he was known as the Viking of 4th Street or something like that. Anyway, very interesting character and absolutely beautiful, beautiful music. Fourth recommendation is Adwaith, who, that's spelled A-D-W-A-I-T-H. They're a Welsh band, fairly new, and they just sound absolutely brilliant. I love their sound. I came across them at a festival last year, and they've released quite a lot of stuff already. They've been championed a bit on Radio 1 and Radio 6 here and there. Some of their songs are in Welsh, they're from Wales, and but it's super groovy and really cool sounding tunes. Not really like anybody else I've heard recently, although certainly derivative to some extent of that kind of, again, that sort of 90s rock sound. Well worth checking out though. I'm going to finish off with a recommendation for a fantastic local act. So we're really lucky in Leicester to have some brilliant local music here. And my final recommendation is Hofu, which is H-O-F-U, who's a local artist who's just started releasing some really fantastic material. It's kind of very clean, soul-y kind of sound, lovely clean vocals, and orchestration, again a little bit synthy, but just really lovely to listen to. Very, very positive, very upbeat, and again a great thing to have in your headphones while you're out on a walk or sitting inside waiting for all of this to be over. So I hope that's been useful. This was so difficult, and there are loads and loads of other albums and acts that I would like to recommend, but I won't because I do understand the rules of this. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep well. Bye from Bullfrog.